Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good wherever you are. I'm your host, That Lit Astro Chick, the channel where we discuss the natal charts, and I will add aspects of writers, artists, and anyone else that I find interesting. So for today's lesson, I wanted to discuss something a little bit different. I've been trying to add more content to my channel, and I've been adding it a little bit more slowly than I would have liked. But I was thinking about also covering how to handle certain transits. And a reason for that is because a friend of mine has a birthday coming up, and I was going to offer her a transit reading to help her prepare for the next year. So I find transit readings to be a really good investment in terms of to figure out where it is that we want to look for in certain areas of our lives, because they can help us with being more mindful. So for today's lesson that I wanted to do on transits, I wanted to discuss the quote-unquote death transit of the astrology world, which is the Pluto square Pluto transit. And the reason why I wanted to discuss this transit is because, for one, I'm currently going through mine right now at my big age. And I also wanted to give some tips out there to anyone who might be facing their square Pluto transit coming up, or if you were just interested in hearing some tips for where this could be best helpful at when it comes to this. So when it comes to the planet Pluto, that's kind of a tongue twister there. When it comes to the planet Pluto, it represents all matters of the 8th house because it's the home of the planet Scorpio. So this is going to deal with things that we don't earn, such as unearned income, inheritances, sex, death. Radical transformation is associated with this planet, and everybody who is currently alive or who has transitioned before, we all have a Pluto in our chart. Pluto is also a generational planet because it moves very slowly, and whatever sign that Pluto is in, that's going to deal with some major transformations that will happen throughout that generation's life. So for example, technically speaking, I'm a millennial, but my Pluto is in Libra. And when it comes to people that have their Pluto in Libra, these are usually going to be people who try to go along to get along, or at least that was usually the demand. It typically deals with all transformative issues around the 7th house. So this is the house that deals with relationships, that deals with the opposite sex, that also deals with marriage and interactions with the legal system. And with the way that Pluto is set up in our charts natally, is that eventually we will be dealing with some of those Plutonian elements at one point of our lives. So something that I find to be interesting about a lot of the discourse online about decentering men or the Great Divorce, a lot of this content is coming from people that are around my age. This is coming from people who are the Pluto Libra generation, and that's because we had a lot of big revolutions in the ways that we think about oppositions, how we deal with conflicts, how we deal with the legal system. And I feel like for every Pluto, you're going to be dealing with some sort of negative interaction with the legal system. And I think that that's the reason why when it comes to the content that we're seeing online about the Great Divorce, a lot of those people have Pluto in Libra, because Libra deals with marriages and legal documents and contracts. Now, when it comes to that square Pluto, what that means is your natal Pluto is going to be squaring off with the transiting Pluto. And then that means that you will be interacting more with some of the more negative aspects of Pluto. And the reason for that is because this is going to be the time in a lot of people's lives in which they will be the most open to threats to physical harm, as well as to be open to, unfortunately, the ultimate transformation, which means that we are going to ascend into the next plane. So when it comes to that square Pluto, if you're trying to figure out how to deal with the transit, one way to think about it is to think about what your current Pluto is in and the transiting Pluto. So currently, those of us who are in the Pluto Libra generation, we're squaring off with that Pluto that's in Capricorn. And to then consider where that transiting Pluto is going to be at in your house, Now, this is going to depend, especially when it comes to what your rising sign is, as far as what your chart placements go and what houses are in those. But typically speaking, for a square Pluto transition, that is usually going to deal with an ending of some sort, or a place where we are really going to take a look at what it is that we may have to let go of in this particular area or in this particular house. The Pluto square Pluto transit, it usually occurs in between the ages of 36 to 61. So it's either going to be right after your second North Nodal return, or it could be either like after or a little bit after your Jupiter return as well. And those are both areas in which, once again, can deal with ascending to a higher plane, just because you're going to be put in more high pressure situations where something like that could manifest and occur. An example that I will give of myself is that when I was 36, I had a major health scare that came up. Now, I'm somebody who tends to be really prudent, not because I like to lord it over people, it's because I'm scared of everything. But I did have an issue that came up that was a major health problem, and I very much was knocking on that door of ascending. I was much closer than what I thought I was. And that was when I was at the very beginning of that transit. What I saw with that near-death experience was that there were things in my life that were more important to me than what I had originally thought that they were. And those were Pluto, and that was what dealt with what was in my third house matter. And Pluto was actually in my third house. And the way that it squared off, because it's currently in my sixth house, was I had to have a radical transformation as far as change and the way that I saw my habits, as well as my work life. I had to not be as self-sacrificing, because I saw that that was going to get me the ultimate sacrifice, because transiting Pluto is currently in my sixth house. But that's actually going to depend more on where it will be at in your chart. So, for example, if you are someone who has transiting Pluto in your fifth house, then that means that your natal Pluto is most likely going to be in your second, your eighth, or your 11th. And then you're going to be thinking more about the issues in your life around those specific areas. So a lot of bad habits, attitudes, beliefs, if there's anything in your life that you need to let go of, you can either reason yourself to let go of it, or you're going to be in positions where you will be forced to let go of it. You might be resistant to the change. Other people are going to be resistant to the change. You might actually come to the conclusion that something that you're doing currently is not going to be suited in your best interests. So let's say, for example, if you have transiting Pluto in your fifth house, correct? And let's say your natal Pluto is going to be in your second house, then what that means is that you're going to be going through more challenges during that particular time that are going to be surrounding your values, as well as your recreation and your relationships, because the second house deals with values and the fifth house deals with recreation, relationships, fun, things that we do that really make us happy. So you want to pay attention to what's going on and where your natal Pluto is, as well as the Pluto that is going to be transiting through that particular, through that house. And that's going to give you an idea of what issues you might be grappling with on this particular time. So the typical Pluto square Pluto transit, it lasts in between 1 year and 18 months. And as I said before, the age in which it's going to happen, that is going to vary. It typically starts in between either 36 or 61. When it comes for people of my generation, we might be currently going through that Pluto square Pluto transition. I know that for me, it happened a little bit later possibly. And the reason for that is because my Pluto is at the 29th degree. So that could usually vary for that. I would say that during this particular time of your square Pluto transit is that you want to pay very close attention to your physical surroundings. You want to make sure that you are not in spaces to where you could potentially have an accident, because an accident could be fatal. You really want to be on top of your health because this could be a revolutionary time to think about your health as well as what your habits are. And I would also advocate that you really do look at what you could potentially have to let go of or get rid of to move forward in life. And I had another video that I wanted to do that would be about manifestation. And that will be its own separate video. I'm trying really hard to keep on topic for these because I really want these to be succinct. I actually want this one to be a little bit shorter than what my general videos are. And I would also advocate for journaling, doing some type of self-care. Where are some areas in which you can really lean on to get some type of support? Because as I said at the beginning, Pluto deals with things that we don't earn. It can also show us areas where we might be able to lean in on other people or other things in order to attain our value or in order to move past those elements of our life. And that is really going to depend on the house where Pluto is at, because while Pluto, it can deal with all the things that people don't like, it also deals with things that are regenerative elements, spots in our lives to where we might actually produce a lot of something in order to provide some sort of comfort or security or to make up what has been lost. So that is all that I'm going to have to say for this one. This now concludes my video on how to deal with the Pluto square Pluto transit. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I look forward to talking with you all again soon.